Welcome back to this week's episode of the Goonery. Been a few weeks. Really happy to be back. We've had a lot going on, but today we're going to be talking some NBA. It's been a crazy start to the offseason. U.S. men's won the gold, and then it's August. Training camp has started. Football's right around the corner. You could start smelling it in the air a little bit. College football, and I believe 2 or 3 weeks, the NFL preseason has already started. And per usual, there are stories out the ass for every single NFL team, and I've been loving every single second of it. But before we get into things, guys, how are we doing?
I'm good, man. It's one of the best times of the year with summer league and preseason rolling around. Saturdays where the real main event starts, but like we're easing into everything being cool again. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, football season is on its way. We are looking at full capacity at most, if not all the stadiums. So football's back. It's good to be back.
Yeah, but before we get into football, NBA offseason got off to a crazy start. I wanted to first start out with Udonis Haslem of the Miami Heat. I just want to give a shout out to him more than anything. 41 years old, has played 5 games the past 2 years from Miami, has yet to leave Miami, and he just signed himself another, I believe it was a $5 million deal to do absolutely nothing. And to that, I tip my cap.
I mean, I want to know who this guy's agent is. He's obviously the greatest agent of all time, next to Sam Bradford's. But I tell you, like, I think we have to start talking about Udonis Haslem having the greatest job in the world to sit on the bench, travel the world, 5 million you're making, and then you could just be a goon for the team whenever they need you to be one. I mean, how is it not the greatest job where you could be a shit starter on a team when you're called upon? Like that's amazing. Good for him though.
Yeah, and I just want to say, do you guys want to take a guess at the last time he's played at least 50 games in a season?
I want to say it was around the LeBron era.
2014. 2014.
Geez. Yeah, I was gonna guess
He
15.
yeah, he played he so since 2020 he played 1 game. 2019 he played 4. 2018 he played 10. 2017 14, 16, 16, 15, 37, 14, 62. And he is a career 7.6 points per game in his career, and he's 41 years old, still in the league. God bless him. He's right up there with Chase Daniel, in my opinion, for guys who just will continue to collect a contract for as long as they want. Because it's a solid guy off the bench.
Yeah,
And
these gotta be like veteran presence or locker room personality. That's a good thing for the team because wasn't his season debut like this like a couple of months ago, and he was ejected like in the first couple of
yeah,
minutes of it. I'm like, this
yeah.
dude, I don't think I've seen him actually like really play in a few years. And then this news comes out, and I'm like, this guy's still in the league. And that's how I felt when I reacted to him when he was ejected. I'm like, this guy's debut is now, and he's still playing in the league. Yeah, it's nuts. But uh, huge props to his agent. That guy is money bags. Yeah, that's good stuff.
And shout out to Pat Riley with the Heat. I mean, just giving his contracts to his guy, proving his loyalty. I mean, that's something free agents are definitely paying attention to, and signing a 41-year-old if you stick around long enough. But before we wrap up NBA really quick, I just wanted to get into it. Chicago Bulls, obviously, I'm going to say the Bulls are back. I'm seeing more red than ever. Getting Lonzo Ball, DeMar DeRozan, but find it particularly interesting that the Bulls are going to have some tampering come down upon them, but not your Lakers, Brandon. Don't you find it just a little bit suspicious that LeBron's Lakers aren't going to have any tampering charges against them?
My man, this is LeBron's world. We just living in it. LeBron ain't never gonna get in trouble. Because let's be honest, that man is either in cahoots with Adam Silver or tells Adam Silver this is what's going to be done. You're gonna like it, or that's it. You want to have your star, your face of your league unhappy? Go right ahead. But LeBron does what he wants, whether it's the right thing or not. He does what he wants. So we just got to deal with it. And I know that hurts a lot of people, but guess what? Get over it. It is what it is.
Yeah, and you're not wrong. I just find it even funnier too because of what happened with the Lakers. God, what was that? Probably almost 10 years ago now with trying to bring Chris Paul out there and the league just completely blocking the trade. And I just find it funny. I find it funny. That's all. I not that I really care, but it's just it's interesting to me more so than anything. But moving away from basketball into football, we mentioned it. We're all very, very excited that it's right around the corner. Preseasons have started and got off to a very hot start, particularly in East Rutherford, New Jersey, with the New York Football Giants. When I believe it was their second day of training camp, where it ended up with their starting quarterback Daniel Jones on the bottom of a full team brawl pile. Just what you want from your team. And then Joe Judge making them run 100-yard sprints until he thought they weren't trying hard enough, and they rolled right into push-ups. Because that's what works really well with professional athletes is conditioning.
Listen, when when Joe Judge first got hired, I immediately did not like the guy. And it was all because of this stupid nobody has a spot, not calling players by their names, calling them by their jersey numbers, and all this other stuff. And then when the season progressed, I was like, okay, he's doing a pretty good job with this team. The defense is coming around and the offense is serviceable at best. But then he went on an integrity rant when they went 6-10 and missed out on the playoffs and came at the Eagles for disrespecting the game, for basically tanking. And I'm just like, well, did you really deserve to get in the playoffs at 6-10? I know they expanded it, but guess what? You still wasn't good enough. And just now with the whole just militaristic approach to training camp and whatnot, I go back to what Kelvin Benjamin said. Granted, Kelvin Benjamin wrote his own demise in on a typewriter. And a lot of people don't want to talk about that, but guess what? He said some quotes. He said that I just don't agree with how he approaches things in terms of like the vulgarity and how tough he is and all this other stuff. And no one's saying that a head coach can't be tough. But also, if you're trying to take this Tom Coughlin-like approach, like granted, yeah, he won 2 Super Bowls, but guess what? There's a lot of guys that have that same approach, and it really hasn't worked out. There's guys in the league that aren't like that. There's guys that are actually players, coaches, and you actually see that they want to play for them. Now, granted, sometimes it does get played out. Sometimes it wins team Super Bowls. But guess what? It doesn't work all the time. And for a guy that is coming from a tree of great head coaches, I think that's where he gets his little chip on his shoulder. But it's just like, bro, tone it back, because you're still a nobody until you make noise in this league. And the only noise that you made was a lot of blabbering, a lot of militaristic BS that nobody's trying to hear. So this whole camp stuff with Joe Judge, it's honestly like, this is him, and honestly, like, I just don't really care for the guy, to be honest with you.
Yeah, there's a tweet by Wesley Steinberg. So about a week ago, he said that sources told him that Judge would walk around up to random players in the facility and just like demand push-ups on the spot to build toughness. And it's kind of like what we're talking about is it's not even really necessary in the NFL. They don't even do that in the military. Or if someone's doing that in the military, you got a shitty leader. But yeah, no, that's just crazy. I mean, these are conditioned like professional athletes. They don't really need that stuff. I don't know what kind of their camp and conditioning and everything that they go through, but they're there for a reason. And I don't really hear too many stories with other NFL head coaches doing that at all. But yeah, like you said, until this guy like establishes himself, if you can't win the NFC East, you probably shouldn't be toting that kind of attitude around, because you can get in at 6 to 7 wins in the postseason and lock up that division. But yeah.
And I find it even more particularly interesting. This whole situation is the fact that I believe the Giants have had 3 or 4 players retire this offseason and have made it very abundantly clear that it was not Joe Judge's fault. But I find that very hard to believe that you're going to see veterans retiring out of nowhere, who I think at least 2 of them were offseason signings coming into a new regime and just not wanting to be there. And then in the case of Kelvin Benjamin, just getting cut because he was stealing food from stealing food and from the team facilities. I know the old saying used to be that Kelvin Benjamin was a Popeye's biscuit away from being a tight end. Well, he ate that Popeye's biscuit. He was signed as a tight end. Now he's a Popeye's biscuit away from playing right guard. Probably be a decent pulling right guard, but I mean, if you're stealing food, dude, come on. I mean, that's just. I just find the whole situation to be interesting, and I wish that they were on Hard Knocks. And I'm not a big Hard Knocks guy. I'll watch it, but I'm not like chomping at the bit to watch it. I like to watch it all in bulk towards the end of the preseason, kind of just binge it all. But I just it'd be very interesting to have cameras on this nearly 24/7 right now.
I think having cameras on it would be the whole blueprint of what to do if you're not a coach. You talk about, like you said, 2 signings in the offseason has retired in training camp. Now, granted, you may have a guy or two that will retire in training camp because sometimes you just come into training camp, your heart's just not in it. That's totally fine. You'd rather just retire now and not waste team's time before you waste team's time going forward. These guys, this is like literally at the start of training camp. These guys are just falling bit by bit. And you just wonder, what is the actual demeanor in the locker room? And the whole thing about walking up to random guys and demanding push-ups, I believe that. But it's like, what for? Toughness? Bro, these guys are in the league. I mean, granted, not everyone exudes toughness in the NFL, but guess what? They're in the league for a reason because they can take some hits and they can give some hits too. So this whole, I don't know, like this, he just oozes as a guy that hangs around jocks and thinks he's one of them, but really he's just a guy that is known from the other guys. Like I don't know. He's a weird guy.
I will say I'm an advocate for players stepping away from the game at any point in time, but I would prefer if they did it before the draft, not after the draft and in training camp. Although for the right reasons, but as you guys can see, definitely prefer if you step away from the game, do it before the draft. Because you mentioned not wasting other teams' time and everything. And yeah. Anyways, we won't go into that. That's just my
response.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how the Giants end up if Joe Judge makes it past week 6. And the NL East is not NL, NFC East as a whole going to be very, very interesting. I mean, the Cowboys, whether Dak is going to play or not, I saw he's getting another MRI done on his ankle. I love watching Dak Prescott play football. I hope that everything ends up being all right with him. Then you have Washington scares me the most out of any team in that division, to be completely honest. And then the Eagles, who knows? I mean, the Eagles could take that next step. They got some more weapons. Jalen Hurts is a guy who looks like he could maybe be someone in the NFL. I'm not completely sold on him, but showed some flashes last year. So I don't know. I think the division race in the East will be a little bit more interesting this year.
100%. And the team that interests me the most is Washington, because the defense you saw last year was legitimate. And you have a guy, Chase Young, who's going to his next year. He's only going to get better. And you have Jonathan Nally, Montez Sweat. These guys, they have the best defensive line in football, and they're all very, very young. That's the scary part about it. But what really interests me is is it going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick? Is it going to be Taylor Heineke? I'm going to lean towards Fitzpatrick. But we had this conversation last season with the whole Tua and Fitzpatrick thing, and I was saying that Fitzpatrick could play himself out of a job. And what I always go back to is the fact that Taylor Heineke was the guy who played the best against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the playoffs last season. I don't know if that was a flash in the pan or what, but that was a damn good defense that he did that against. So I'm curious. I haven't seen anything from the Washington and Patriots preseason game other than Chase Young strip sack and Cam, but that's it. That's a matchup. That's a quarterback competition. I'm really looking at to see like who is actually going to have the edge going into week 1.
Yeah, and I'm a huge fan of Fitzpatrick. I just love the fact that he has played seemingly nearly 50% of the league at this point and has made an impact everywhere he's gone to an extent. But speaking of quarterbacks who will not be bouncing around from team to team, we're going to move into Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Urban Meyer came out, I believe it was early today, late last night, whatever it was when I saw it, that the starter at quarterback is not set in stone yet in Jacksonville, and there's an open quarterback competition between Trevor Lawrence and Gardner Minshew because, I'm very positive that's happening right now.
Urban Meyer. This is not college, my guy. You can't just say, oh, this guy's going to play the first half and the other guy's going to play the second half. You're going to see what we have. You drafted Trevor Lawrence number 1. You didn't draft him to be a guy that's going to sit behind. You're not Hugh Jackson. Hugh Jackson didn't do favors for Baker Mayfield. And I'm pretty sure good and damn well that Trevor Lawrence isn't going to be that guy. You want to know why? Because Gardner Minshew was the starter last season, and he wasn't good enough. So that's why you took Trevor Lawrence with the number 1 pick. Who are you fooling? Come on, man. I understand you want to grab headlines because you're the biggest attention whore and probably in sports. But guess what? No one's fooled by it. I'm sure I'm not fooled by it. We're going to see Trevor Lawrence week 1, and it's going to be exciting. That's it.
Yeah, definitely. Trevor Lawrence is going to get the nod here. They're playing the Texans week 1, so I just pulled it up. They're a dumpster fire, as we all know here, and we don't even know what's going on with Watson still. That would be a good opportunity for Trevor Lawrence to come in and get the start and probably build some confidence, but it would kind of help solidify that case of him being the starter. But when you take someone number 1, it's really hard not to. I mean, that's your franchise guy. You believed in him enough to take him at number 1 overall. He's going to get the starting job. He's going to get the starting job over Minshew. And when not to kind of like segue over to like the Bears with Dalton and everything too, it kind of feels like that should be the same as well with Fields getting the nod over Dalton. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
So I'm definitely someone who overreacts to off-season tweets and articles, regardless of the sport. I fully agree that and accept the fact that I do that. But the fact that, I saw reports that Dolphin beat writers are now out after the Bears and Dolphins had joint practices the past few days saying that Justin Fields is legit and Justin Fields is his best quarterback on the field, including Andy Dalton, Nick Foles, Tua. I mean, when you're saying that over your own young, supposedly star quarterback, and just all the clips I've been seeing coming out of training camp, I'm sitting here scrolling through Twitter, looking at my phone, and a certain extremity is having a little bit of extra blood flow to it when you least expect it. The Bears have a good quarterback.
So I have a tendency to flip-flop a lot. Now,
100%. That's a modern sports fan. I agree. I do it too. You're so reactionary because everything's right at the palm of your hand. Everyone does it.
He's already the greatest Bears quarterback of all time.
He needs to surpass 2013 Josh McCown, but I won't even go there.
But I saw that tweet today, and I'm on my lunch break at work. I see that tweet, and you know what, man? That was a fun season. I don't care what anyone says. I mean, it made no sense. But go. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to cut you off.
It's so good. But so when Justin Fields, I believe we had this conversation maybe like 2 or 3 episodes ago, that if Justin Fields gets acclimated early with the playbook, I think that he should be the starter. Now, there was a point in time when training camp first started, I started seeing all the reports that Andy Dalton is really balling. He has chemistry with Allen Robinson. He's making these dime drop passes to Damian Williams and all this other stuff. And I'm like, you know what? If he's the starter, what's the worst that can happen? Because if he's gaining this chemistry already with the receivers, that's amazing, coupled with the fact that he's with his own offensive coordinator now, Bill Lazor. So I was like, okay, that's cool. If Fields has to wait, fine. And then today, I see that Justin Fields it was outplaying Andy Dalton against different competition that they were playing all training camp. And now you're just like, wait a minute. It seems to be trending that way. Because remember, this was the same song and dance we went through with Mike Glennon and Mitch Trubisky. Glennon was doing well. He wasn't doing quite as good as Andy Dalton in training camp. I wasn't even there, and I know that. But Glennon was doing better, and Mitch was doing good. And then preseason happened, and we saw Mike Glennon and who he really is, and they were just like, I want to see Trubisky. And I feel like we're about to head down that route again. And before I head it off, if that is the case, that Fields outplays Dalton, Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy need to say, you know something, our jobs are on the line. So if I want to make that, if either one of them want to make that decision to start Justin Fields, they might as well. Guess what? You have to put all your chips on the table. And and now if you have a quarterback that you know that's going to be your franchise guy, and he's outplaying the guy that you claim to be the starter before training camp, you got to do it. I don't like being lied to, but if I gotta be lied to this one time, I'm cool with it because I want to see Justin Fields on the field week one. I don't give a damn if it's against the Rams. I don't give a damn that first 3 weeks it's going to be Rams, Bengals, and Browns. I don't care. I want to see him because I know for a fact that he's going to be the best guy to get us wins this season, and that's all I care about. And that's all Pace and Nagy should care about too.
And there were two particular tweets today that I saw that really got me excited. The one being that Justin Fields in the red zone practice and the red zone drills they're doing against the Dolphins, he went 3 for 3 passing with 3 touchdowns, and he had a rushing touchdown. Granted, you can't touch the quarterback in practice, but he still got in for a rushing touchdown. So 4 touchdowns, 4 plays. You love to see that. And then Adam Johns from the Athletic, not sure if you guys follow him, he tweeted that Justin Fields was not only the best quarterback on the field, but the best player on field 3 today at training camp. The fact that the Bears got Justin Fields at 11, I mean, Seth, it was almost written in the stars for you as the Colts. Like it looked like for a while that you guys were going to get him until you got Wentz, and I mean that would have been a dream come true for you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like super obviously biased, as you guys know, I'm a diehard OSU fan, but I feel like I'm a tolerable and reasonable one. I still think Justin Fields is going to be the best quarterback to come out of this draft. Like as far as like your top tier ones, Ohio State needs a quarterback in the NFL to do good. And even though Justin Fields only played like a year and a half there, I think you can make a good argument that he was probably the greatest quarterback that OSU has ever had. And week 1, so you guys have the Rams, but it's also Sunday night too. Is that right? So you guys
Yes.
have the primetime game. That's huge. So although like I just, I just worry about him going up against that guy over there, Aaron Donald. That guy is an absolute freak, and there's no one else like him. I'd like to see Dalton get the beating there, but at the same time, I'm ready to see Fields come out there and just, light it up as an OSU quarterback. It's going to be hard for me to not root for the Bears. I mean, I'm definitely going to root for him, mainly because of Fields. So I'll have no problem doing that. But yeah, I really thought we would have had a shot at Justin Fields. I'm still kind of surprised he fell as far as he did, but I hope the other teams are, they're paying for it. They're like, dang, we passed up on this guy because, I've heard it, and it's hard not to get super excited about it because it is just training camp. You never really know how they're going to do until they play, but we might, I'm sure we're going to see him a little bit in the preseason, maybe not very much, but he's the guy. He's definitely going to be starting at some point, even if it's not week 1, could be week 2, but that's the Bears guy. So I'm ready to see him ball out.
So I'm glad you mentioned going up against Aaron Donald week 1. And I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but I actually had to attack the Bears for something. I was one of the main guys that hyped the Tevin Jenkins pick. He has not practiced once this training camp, and it's revealed that he has back issues. Now, I was never a big Charles Leno fan, but if the Bears knew Tevin Jenkins had back issues going into picking him, and not only that, but trading up for him. If they knew that while getting rid of Leno, putting all your eggs into that basket, I mean, come on, man. We have to rely on Wilkinson and Latavius Simmons as our tackles right now. The whole offensive line is beat up. Barnes got injured. Daniels got hurt. Like it's a bad look, and that would be my only concern going into week one, whether you want to start Fields or not, because I do think that you know with Trubisky behind a bad line and Fields behind a bad line would be a very big difference because Fields is a physical freak and he'll actually not hesitate to run. Now, the real question is how much will he be running behind that offensive line that's already beat up? That's my main concern. So if the Bears knew, shame on them because now they are in a really bad spot, and this could lead to another situation where you have a Rashad Coward-like player playing the line again, and Lord knows that single-handedly almost ruined the Bears' season, and you just can't let that happen again.
Yeah, I think I have some of your Rashad Coward rants from last year. Just it etched into my brain, and rightfully so. But
Absolutely.
we'd had the conversation before too about the debate of the Bears drafting a quarterback before they obviously had Justin Fields kind of fall into their lap a little bit despite having to trade up. But was it worth drafting a rookie quarterback and throwing him into a horrible situation like they had done with Trubisky before and kind of just really having an odd development? And the lack of offensive line depth right now is concerning, but you know what? I'm kind of have the blinders on, and it's like, all right, I have a quarterback to cheer for, and it's the sad reality. But I know as soon as whoever's out there week one and just getting destroyed by that Rams defensive line, I know for a fact I'll be calling for the front office's head, and that's just the cycle of life. But yeah, that's where I'm at with this. But our other host here, Seth. I mean, obviously we could see the Colts memorabilia in the background. You've had quite the whirlwind of a week and a half or so with injury news.
Yeah, so being a Colts fan, it's definitely been a little crazy because I feel like last week and a half or so, we went from Carson Wentz isn't playing until week 5, week 6, same, and then Quentin Nelson too, who really is already a Hall of Famer, future Hall of Famer, and of course he's been in the Pro Bowl every year. He's been in the league. He's nuts. He's so good. Yeah, and hearing all that news in like a matter, it felt like within an hour all that was happening, and then another couple days later, oh, they're probably going to be starting week 1, and I'm like, what is the deal? And here I am, I'm already like I'm hyped up for Eason and Ellinger, Sam Ellinger, to kind of go head to head to see who our starting quarterback is. If I'm Wentz, I'm concerned, and they're saying that Eason and them, they're competing for the backup job, but I'm hearing good things about them in training too. Like they're both having like some really good training session or training camps so far. I like our pool of quarterback talent that we have here, and what's really nice about them is we didn't give up really anything to pick them up just because they fell so late in the draft. I think we picked up Eason last year, like fourth round, very late in the draft, and same with Sam too. We picked him up this year late in the draft, and he was a surprise pick too. So we didn't really know who we were getting at the time, or well, we picked up Wentz there, and so it kind of threw me off a little bit when we had picked him up. But they knew about Wentz's injury history, so here we are. And there's a good pool of like we have 3 quarterbacks that we can really take a look at. And now all 3 of them should be ready to go week 1. I just, we've been we've lost every like week 1 week 1 game like since Andrew Luck's rookie year. It feels like back in 2012. maybe even like the year before that. Well, no, we were 2-14, but yeah, if we could just get that week 1 win over the Seahawks and prime Russell Wilson, that week 1 through 6 Russell Wilson, I would be happy. We could go 1-4, which we probably will, and then we'll finish with 12, 13 wins as we always do. But yeah, it's looking good for Indy. I mean, we did Quiddy Pay had a slight ankle sprain, but he showed up in a boot today. So I am concerned about that because I was really excited to see him, come out. We still don't know like the severity of it, but I'm really glad we picked him up because I think our defense is going to be nasty. I could see him being a top 3 to 5 defense this year.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree. I agree with you there.
Oh, sorry. Oh, so what I was gonna. Oh, sorry. What I was gonna say was it's the Colts are in a very interesting situation right now because a lot of the reps have gone to both Ellinger and Eason, and both are very, very interesting guys because Eason was supposed to be the guy at Georgia, didn't really work out, so he went to the school that's on my hat right now, Washington Huskies, and he was a prospect, but also he was a developmental prospect more than anything coming out. And he has the intangibles that you would want in a quarterback: big, strong arm guy, and all he needs is some fine tuning. And then you have Sam Ellinger, and Sam Ellinger is that guy that you will watch every noon or at night to see Texas play. He would just bomb throws out or make that gunslinger throws, whether it gets picked off or thrown for a touchdown. He was an exciting guy. So they're two both interesting prospects. But I think it's interesting that we don't even know, but these guys are competing to be the future of the Colts because we have no idea how Wentz is going to pan out. And this could be from a ability standpoint, or this could be from an availability standpoint. So I think whatever happens within the preseason, whether Eason balls or Ellinger balls, or even both of them ball out, I think the Colts are in a really good situation. And the main thing about that being a good thing is who is their head coach. Frank Reich is the perfect guy to develop these two guys. So if I'm a Colts fan, I'm not too antsy about Wentz being out. I'm more concerned about Nelson being out more than anything.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
But if both of those guys show me something in the preseason, I'm good. I'll be totally fine.
Yeah, unpopular opinion. But I was skeptical of the Wentz signing. Wasn't really sure how I felt about it. Then I saw some highlights where he was throwing some lasers after scrambling for 40 yards backwards, and they were like wide open touchdowns. So that was exciting. But Eason kind of reminds me a little bit, and I know this is a wild comparison, of like Matt Ryan. So like he a little tall and lanky in the pocket, but he's good, right? And he has the awareness. Obviously, we're comparing an NFL veteran, like a seasoned, a good player, good quarterback, great quarterback, really, to someone who hasn't really gotten any touches in like 2 years. But that's kind of how I would compare him. And then definitely Sam Ellinger, that gunslinger type quarterback. I'm not comparing him to Brett Favre, but he had a lot of silly plays in Texas, but he's gritty. He can scramble. He can make those runs. Yeah, definitely gunslinger mentality there. So I think these are really the 1 and 2 guys, because with very little cap hit, very little to no cap hit for the Colts, I mean, we can walk after this year away from Wentz, and I think we're in good hands. So I'm excited. I was more concerned about Quentin Nelson being out. I'm ready to see the future of Indy, because we don't really know what's going to happen with Wentz. The guy's been injured, and apparently it was an injury from high school. And I'm like, where have I heard this before? And I'm like, this guy's just now getting surgery for it.
Yeah, so what exactly is the injury again? It's like almost like a floating bone in their foot, and they both miraculously have it at the same time or something along those lines, right?
Yeah, it was like practically the same injury. And luckily, surgery went really well for both of them. I couldn't even tell you. But from what I heard about Wentz he had it kind of floating around since high school. And I'm like, why is this just now coming out again? it made me even more bummed out about Justin Fields, because I'm like, this guy's about to miss 5 to 6 weeks, and Justin Fields almost fell into our lap too. Because I think the Chicago Bears were probably, and maybe the Patriots too, were eyeballing a quarterback. But yeah, just makes me wonder what could have been. But we're in good hands, so I'm excited. Kind of hope Eason gets the nod, but as long as Wentz is fine, he'll come back. But the minute he sucks, they're definitely going to be scratching their heads and wondering.
Yeah, it's definitely something to monitor too, because isn't there a condition in the Wentz trade deal where he has to play at least like 51% of the snaps or something along those
So
lines for that additional first round pick?
yes, and what I guess I'm definitely keeping an eye on is I think if he plays 70% of the snaps and the Colts make the playoffs, then the Eagles will get a first round pick. So it's a conditional first round pick. But if he plays the entire season, 75% of the snaps, and like the Colts don't make the playoffs, I think it's at 75% of snaps, then they'll get the first round pick. But, from a GM standpoint too, if you have Eason playing really good and if Wentz isn't ready week one, depending on how long Wentz is out, you're definitely going to be wondering like, hey, oh, we got a first year guy that's in here that's really good. Let's just ride it out, see what happens. And then we keep our first round pick. I mean, that's, best case scenario. But if Wentz pans out too, then Eagles can have the first round pick. I feel like, if we make the playoffs, that's successful. What's kind of been holding them back is a mobile quarterback, a quarterback that has the ability to extend plays when they need to scramble. Old Man Rivers wasn't getting it done. I mean, I couldn't complain because he had a really good game against Buffalo and he
Yes, he
played
did.
really good for Indy. So he played really good. We saw some progress there. But yeah, in today's NFL, you got to have a quarterback who's somewhat mobile. Except Tom Brady, I mean, that guy just defies any like boundaries that there are. So he's like in his own list, but every other team, Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson anymore, really just about every Baker Mayfield, they all kind of have that similar ability to, just extend the plays. And that's what the Colts needed. I felt like if the Colts had that, and of course Patrick Mahomes, they could have been, their Super Bowl caliber with a decent mobile quarterback. That defense is I'm really excited to see the defense. That's what I'm most excited about this year. So we're gonna tear it up.
Yeah, the AFC South is a division that I really love watching every year because I mean, when Watson was getting going with Texans and they were getting competitive, the Colts were still kind of trying to find their footing post Luck era, but they were still always fun to watch. And then you had the Titans who kind of came out of nowhere. That's just a hard hitting division,
Yeah.
and it's going to be a dogfight down the stretch between your Colts and the Titans. And I'm really looking forward to watching it.
Mhm.
And I know you briefly mentioned Tom Brady. I just want to touch on this before we wrap up. Did either of you guys see the picture of Tom Brady at the Hall of Fame induction ceremony with him and Tony Dungy? It it
Yes.
it
Oh
looked
no.
like he had either had too much Botox, too much cocaine, or a little bit of both. And it was just, man, that guy is he just does not look human.
Hey, listen. I usually reserve these jokes for Twitter,
Oh sheesh.
but it, I usually reserve these jokes for Twitter, but it looked like they was at Kurt Angle's locker room a little bit before they got. I mean, damn, like it, like it looked like the flash didn't even affect their eyes because they
No.
thought it was something. But I mean, that was scary. Like I will see that. I think I'm gonna see that picture in my dreams one of these days. Like that picture is horrifying.
It like even almost reminded me of, I mean, that meme that was going around the internet forever was like, hey, my friend over there on the other side of the bar wants to talk to you
Yeah.
or thinks you're cute. And it's just like the Brady and Dungy with the pasted on smiles and their eyes just as wide open as you can get.
They look like some masks that people would wear in the Purge movies. That's what I see
Yep.
there.
Yep.
And it like Brady almost even reminded me of Jim Carrey in The Mask with like just like that face that he has in that picture.
Yeah,
He looks like a Barbie doll, like a Ken Barbie doll.
literally.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the picture of him and Peyton I saw on Twitter as well. Peyton's gray shirt he wore underneath, he just sweat through the entire thing. I thought that was pretty funny. But
Ain't no one topping Ray Lewis though. I mean Lloyd. Drenched.
Yeah,
20-minute sermon.
God, that speech is still one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. And real quick, one more very, very brief NFL just absurdity I saw the other day was the quote from O.J. Simpson saying that he'll no longer go to L.A. because he's afraid he might end up sitting next to the person who killed him.
I was laughing for 5 straight minutes. When I see, I'm like, dude, that
I mean,
is the biggest troll, and we don't even know it. That has got to be the funniest quote of the year.
I don't want to go to LA because I'm afraid I might sit next to the person who did it.
Yo, oh man, OJ is one of a kind. Let's just say that. But boy,
yeah, I mean, we can bag on him as much as we want, but I'll tell you what, I still get a kick out of his Twitter every time. It's never a tweet, it's always a video. It's, hey, Twitter sphere, it's OJ.
Listen. I know I'm not supposed to be a fan of the guy. I'm still not a fan of the guy, but he almost won me over with OJ Mahomes on Halloween. Almost. That was funny.
That was. Oh man, yeah. I'm just hoping. I can't wait to get back to the OJ weekly fantasy updates. We'll always get about his team, how drafts Pat Mahomes in the first round. Because if you want to win football games, you got to have a good quarterback. And you know what? That logic doesn't apply to fantasy football, but I guess it also doesn't apply when you kill people either. So
yeah.
not go back to LA. But that's gonna wrap up this week's show. Hopefully we will be back next week with a lot more exciting preseason news, maybe some more clarity, the quarterback situations for both of our teams here in the Bears and the Colts. But please don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the show on YouTube if you made it this far, and we'll see you guys next week.